And I call the clerk.
First reading, a bill for an act to create duties to consider climate change impacts and to deal with consequential and transitional matters arising from the enactment of the Climate Change National Framework for Adaptation and Mitigation Act 2020 and for related purposes.
And I call the member for Warringah.
I move that this bill be now read a second time. Mr Deputy Speaker and fellow members of Parliament, I've already introduced the Climate Change Bill, which puts into law, if passed, a net zero target by 2050, legislates for climate risk assessment and adaptation and resilience planning, and establishes regular technology readiness assessments and an independent climate change commission. Underpinning the other elements of the Climate Change Bill is the establishment of an independent climate change commission. This body is modelled on the successful and respected Climate Change Committee in the United Kingdom. The Climate Change Committee has provided sound advice over the last decade, ensuring that the United Kingdom is on track with their Paris commitments. Unfortunately, we have already had the Climate Change Authority, but over many years of partisan attacks, it has been defunded and weakened. We need a trusted, independent body that the government defers to and actually the public can receive clear, independent, expert-based climate advice. This bill will repeal the Climate Change Authority and establish the Climate Change Commission. Importantly, as a point of difference to the authority, the membership of the Commission will be selected by a bipartisan parliamentary committee and will reflect broad skills and requirements, such as regional development, agriculture, economics, financial investment, technology development, energy production and supply, industrial relations, an Indigenous voice, climate science and policy. The Commission will have a Commissioner of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island descent. This will ensure that Indigenous Australians are at the centre of this transition and will benefit from the many opportunities that come. The Commission does not usurp the role of government. Setting policies and delivering strategies will sit with the Minister and be the role of government. But the Commission is a trusted advisory body that can ensure that we are on the right track. The Commission will work with the government in a transparent and accountable way. The Commission will assess climate risks, new technologies and provide advice on adaptation plans and emissions budgets that are fair and equitable across generations, across regions and across industries. The government will present plans and budgets to Parliament with reasons for any variation from the Commission's recommendations. And the Commission will report annually on progress against Australia's emission targets, technology goals and adaptation and emission reductions plan. The Australian people want clarity. Financial organisations, including Commonwealth entities like government agencies and departments, are exposed to the risks of climate change impacts. In October 2019, the Financial Stability Report, the Reserve Bank of Australia observed that climate change is exposing financial institutions and the financial system more broadly to risks that will rise over time if not addressed. Since 2017, the Task Force on Climate-related Financial Disclosure, led by Michael Bloomberg, has been leading voluntary climate reporting standardisation for private companies. Companies around the world have recognised the value of climate disclosure. Benefits include more effective risk assessment, capital allocation and strategic planning. Banks, insurers, developers, miners and big business around the world have been rapidly incorporating climate disclosure in their annual reporting. After a landmark opinion by Noel Hutley SC and Sebastian Hartford Davis, legal cases in the recent McVeigh v Rest Super and the Australian Securities and Investment Commission's and the Australian Prudential Regulation Authority's guidance on climate risks, Australian companies must start disclosing material climate risks or be exposed to legal and regulatory actions. According to APRA, a listed entity should disclose whether it has any material exposure to environmental or social risks, and if it does, how it manages or intends to manage those risks. But, Mr Deputy Speaker, how can we ask the private sector to do this, but the public sector does not? Commonwealth entities are also exposed to those risks. A recent legal action claiming that the government is not disclosing climate risks on Treasury bonds demonstrates this. National governments have been successfully prosecuted in Ireland and the Netherlands for failing to adequately respond to climate-related risks. The federal government is exposed. This bill will ensure that the accountable authority of a Commonwealth entity must consider, in the exercising of duties or powers, the potential risks of climate change and the potential contribution to Australia's emission of greenhouse gases and broader impacts from those actions. This bill will also establish reporting on material risks to those entities and disclosure of actions taken to mitigate those risks. By providing for these considerations, there will be an alignment between the Commonwealth entities and the private sector. As well, stakeholders, including the community, will have confidence that the government is managing its own climate risk. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Climate Change Bill and consequential transitional provisions provide for comprehensive climate action. They ensure we have the plans in place to grasp the opportunities of a net zero transition, as well as mitigate the risks of climate impacts. Just like we have come together in responding to the pandemic, I ask that all sensible members come together on this issue. This is the issue of our time, and we need to support this solution. If members claim they are for climate action, this is their opportunity to come to the table. It's time to put partisan politics aside. For our prosperity, our safety, our future, these bills are so important, and I commend these to the House. And I cede the rest of my time to the member for Indi.
Order. Is the motion seconded?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I am proud to second this bill. I am proud that the electorate of Indi is written into history seconding this bill, and I am proud for the people of Warringah that their member has introduced this bill. Climate change is a significant challenge and a great opportunity for regional Australia. And this bill will help us to protect our way of life in the regions and to seize the opportunities that are before us. And I say to any rural and regional MP in this House, look to this bill for your opportunity to conserve what you love about the regions and to seize the opportunities that are there for the people you represent. In Indi, the CSIRO projects that runaway climate change, which is our current pathway, would see rainfall decline in northeast Victoria by up to 36%. Not in a bad year, in every year. Average temperatures in northeast Victoria have already increased by 1 degree and could go up by 2.4 degrees within 30 years. That would mean double the number of extreme heat days and a 44% increase in extreme fire danger days. Like everyone in northeast Victoria, I love our region and I want to conserve the things that we all love about it. I want our dairy farmers to be able to rely on the spring rains and produce Australia's best dairy products in the Kiewa valleys and the Upper Murray. I want our grape growers in places like Rutherglen and the King Valley to continue to make the best wines in the world and not be driven out by the danger of smoke taint. And I want our alpine villages of Mount Hotham, Mount Buller and Falls Creek to remain viable and to continue to have snowy winters far into the future. I want to see my grandchildren ski in toboggan. I want our tourist towns like Mansfield and Bright to be able to rely on the summer trade and not have it periodically wiped out by catastrophic bushfires. I never again want to see 30,000 people evacuate from my region in a catastrophic bushfire. Mr Deputy Speaker, it is these things, the things that we love about our community, that are at risk if we fail to take proper action to stabilise our climate, if we fail to embrace the opportunity that the member for Warringah has given us today. And at the same time, if we want to create a better future for our regions, we should be moving now to seize the opportunities that create jobs in these emerging industries. Instead of importing polluting petrol from Saudi Arabia, I want to see us exporting Australian-made zero-carbon hydrogen fuel. Instead of importing carbon-intensive steel from China and the US, I want to see us exporting Australian-made zero-carbon steel. A net zero economy means new manufacturing industries based in regional Australia, and it means massive investment in clean energy in regional Australia, the regions that I represent. This bill sets out a framework to both conserve all that is precious about our communities and capture opportunities that are before us. Mr Deputy Speaker, I am a proud regional Australian and I am a proud advocate for the regions, and I am so proud to second this bill, and I commend it to the House.
Yeah.